We're gonna talk about Mulan first, and then see like what time we have, and then we can discuss other drama stuff. I want to first just do a little bit introduction about Mulan's legend. I think a lot of people already know, but you know, just talk about that first, then we can talk about the film. But do realize like it's Disney's basically taking one very simple sort of idea or story and making a version, and then make a live action based on the previous animation. So it's like already being worked on multiple levels. It doesn't really have to have anything to do with the actual legend in China's literature or history. You know, it's actually not really history. So basically, the legend of Mulan comes from a ballad, a poem, sort of mid-length, a little bit long poem that today we would say it traces back to Beichao, North dynasties, which if you watch a lot of my videos, you know the North and Nanbeichao in China's time, which is South and North, or Southern and Northern dynasties. It's a period that happened after Jin dynasty, which is after the Three Kingdoms. And it is during this period that China is very divided, and mainly divided into two parts, the northern and the southern. In terms of who is holding the power of the north and south, it changes during that 1.5 century. Bigger countries gets broken into smaller countries, different surnames coming and take power, so it's a mess basically. Nanbeichao, South and North dynasties, is a mess, and it happens about end of 4th century to about middle of the 6th century. And after that, you come across Sui, which is a very short-lived 2-emperor dynasty, and then it goes to the Tang, the most well-known, one of the most well-known dynasty. So Nanbei is a really divided, messy part. The ballad comes from that time, and due to what particular words, vocabulary are used in that poem, we can kind of guess it comes from the northern part at that time, which we would call Bei Wei, Northern Wei. And Northern Wei's power is actually not held by Han people. It's Xianbei, which is an ethnic group that today no longer exists. So they are actually not the typical Middle Kingdom Han ruled China, where Mulan is a member of that society. So it's actually not a very typically more Han-oriented culture. Yeah, it's weird. I don't think that Western people even bother to look into it. So the thing with Mulan fighting against the even northerner tribe, which is at that time called Ran. So I'm gonna switch a map on to my screen, hopefully. And you will be able to see. So this is a southern and northern dynasties China. So if you can see my cursor, this is the south part, which is Song. And it's not always Song. So during those dynasties, it has been changing later to Chen, like different dynasties, but roughly they move around this area. That's the southern country. And this is the northern. And everything else is actually other people that we would consider in terms of if you compare Middle Kingdom to the surrounding, more nomadic culture and powers. So it's actually really complicated. If you look at this part, which is called Rouran, it looks like it's today's Inner Mongolia plus parts of Mongolia. And that was where in Mulan's live action film, the bad guy, the bad people, you know, the invaders come from. So Mulan is from this country, which is Wei, Northern Wei, which is the northern country. And then the southern country at that time is Song, which is run by the Liu family. If you watch Song of Glory, led by Qin Hao and Li Qing, their story takes place in this part. And that is actually Jiankang, that is the capital. So basically Mulan is roughly the same time, existing at the same time as Song of Glory's characters, but she's in this country. So if you look at where this country is, we consider northern, because this is like a Yellow River. You can see this is Yellow River. So she is from this part. Now the funny thing about this film when it starts is they live in this surround complex building that many people live in, which is Mulan's home. That is very, very Fujian architecture. It does not exist anywhere apart from being like at the very south of China. So, first mistake it has is Mulan would not live in that kind of place. Like the building would not be like that. She would be somewhere here. And she fights the enemy who comes from there. Mostly would presume Mulan is somebody who is from Bei Wei, Northern Wei. But she is really a fictional character. There is no proof that this person ever existed in history as a real person. It's more like a legend, you know, like Robin Hood. You know, like can you prove like, you know, that type of person really existed type of thing? Disney doesn't care. Or maybe they know, they just don't think it's necessary to go like that deep into history, so they mishmash everything Chinese that is contemporary China and put it back 1,500 years ago, which has nothing to do with history. So that's the background for Mulan. I can recite that poem actually. I picked it up yesterday just to, you know, like polish it a bit because it's something we have to remember when we were in school. I can quickly recite that ballad so you get an idea about how big it is in terms of length. And basically it tells the story of Mulan, like trying to, like her father gets drafted and so she's like, I'm gonna go, and she goes and then she fights and for 12 years and she comes back and her family welcomes her, and then she dresses up as a girl again, coming out to meet all her soldier mates, and they were all surprised that for 12 years they didn't know she is a woman. That's the entire ballad basically. Okay, trying to do that. To prove that I'm reciting it, this is a blank fan, I'm just gonna cover that, so I'm not actually looking at anything at all.
唧唧复唧唧，木兰当户织，不闻机杼声，惟闻女叹息。问女何所思？问女何所忆？女亦无所思，女亦无所忆。昨夜见军帖，可汗大点兵。军书12卷，卷卷有爷名。阿爷无大儿，木兰无长兄。愿为山马，从此替父征。东市买骏马，西市买鞍鞯，南市买辔头，北市买长鞭。但辞爷娘去，暮宿黄河边。不闻爷娘唤女声，但闻黄河流水鸣溅溅。但辞黄河去，暮至黑山头。不闻爷娘唤女声，但闻燕山胡尽鸣啾啾。万里赴戎机，关山度若飞。朔气传金柝，寒光照铁衣。将军百战死，将士十年归。归来见天子，天子坐明堂。策军12转，赏赐百千强。可汗问所欲，木兰不用上书郎。愿驰千里足，送儿还故乡。爷娘闻女来，出郭襄扶江。阿姊闻妹来，当户理红妆。小弟闻姊来，磨刀霍霍向猪羊。开我东阁门，做我西阁床，脱我战时袍，着我旧时裳。当窗理云鬓，对镜贴花黄。初闻看伙伴，伙伴皆金王。同行12年，不知木兰是女郎。雄兔脚扑朔，雌兔眼迷离。双兔傍地走，安能辨我是雄雌？Done. Ha 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 ha.
So I have just recited the whole thing. It's no big deal because it's really easy. It's very rhymed, and like I think it was like middle school, something like middle school that you have to. It's one of those things. Anyway, it tells the whole story. So that's about how long. The entirety of Mulan's story comes from that poem. There's like no historical record. There's nothing else. It all comes from that poem. So there's only that much content there. Like, yeah, you see, it's a story. It's really not history. We have to recite a lot of things. Don't you have to recite poetry when you grow up learning your own like language or literature? I'm pretty sure every country has its like tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night sort of thing. Or the daffodil thing for all the British people. You know what I'm talking about. So now I'm gonna talk about what I think about the film. I think, yeah, mostly it's just like, I don't know what to praise about it, apart from like, it's high definition and people are all in focus. Like, if you're talking about cinematography, yeah, that's the only good thing I can see. I mean, I'm not even a fan of how they move camera, and also editing, like how they edit stuff together is very disorientating and not establishing well. But okay, so that's probably the only good thing. Like some of the lightings are really good, but like it's what you expect coming from Disney, right? So the good things are that. The problems I see, the biggest problem, okay, I actually don't really mind that they don't do research into history at all, because this is really a legend. It's not really history. So you can go as crazy as far as you want if you want to tell a story that you see fit. I think as a visual storytelling, the biggest problem it has is it is just a really weakly written story in terms of its characters, the plot. It's a very typical sort of hero's journey story, like somebody who is from a humble background, who is like, you know, not recognized for their value in society, and gradually through their own working get to the top of that whatever and become a hero, right? This is a very typical hero's journey story. There are millions and millions of stories like that in films as well. It's no different. But when you're writing this type of story, there really is a formula in terms of how you write it and how you create lovely, convincing, like good characters. This film just doesn't do it. It totally goes against the basic rules of writing a hero's journey. Basically, it gives her plot armor and main character's halo right from the first moment. It's not that Mulan did anything through her own hard work, her perseverance, her courage, none. It's all because she is born with it. They gave her this weird chi idea, which is just totally what? It's not even misrepresentation of what we consider to be chi in China. It's just they invented a magical thing that just does not exist in Chinese culture in that way, and she is born with it. So she is naturally hopping on roofs and defying gravity and whatever superpower she has. And her father is basically you're a girl, so you can have it. If you're a guy, you can. And because you're a girl, you have it, then the world will consider you as you'll be exiled. It's a disgrace. I'm where does that come from? Anyway, because of that. So she actually has already the power to basically defeat any enemies if she wishes, and she just hides it. And it's only when she got into the army, it got to the point where she needs to use it, that she releases it. So where's the value of that struggle of becoming, the hero against all odds? There's really no odds. It's just basically at what point you decide to show your power. It totally changes the baseline, the meaning of the story. So that's the biggest problem. It's not a convincing hero's journey story at all. The second thing is, I think I made a video many years ago when they first announced the casting choice about Mulan, because in that I said what Mulan means to Chinese people and what the animation version has done, which is a lot of added characters and for animation's sake. So if they're making a shot-by-shot live action version, I wasn't sure how well it would work in terms of a talking dragon, a cricket, and there's still a lot of misrepresentations of how that ancestral thing to Chinese people work. So I was worried about that. But after I've seen this film, I'm actually had they done that, it might be better. Because at least it would be happy, it would be fun, it would be the cricket and the dragon singing and dancing and whatever. Just give me magic, because Disney is supposed to be about that. It just go crazy with it. Although Aladdin got really Bollywood and Beauty and Beast is just, but they have good songs, okay? Evermore is one of my favorite from the live action series that's newly made for the live action series. Dan Stevens. It's just, can I just fangirl a little bit? Anyway, give us that too. Good singing. I'm happy. Because some of the songs in Mulan are really good, and they just didn't bother to put any of those into this film at all. So they took out all the fun of the original animation. They took out all the song in that. They made her plot armored and super powerful. So what's left there? That's also a one thing I'm just it may actually be more fun if they did a shot by shot. The fun is gone, and the message is really warped. And so the third thing is what I talked about earlier, mentioned a little bit about the father's about this thing throughout this film. They have this very feminism, this very identity politics feel of the story that is just so. At least I think to Chinese people, it is not selling at all. It's basically saying you're a woman, therefore you get looked down upon. And also because you have superpower that other people do not have. It's like a witch hunt thing. Your value literally comes from what you're naturally born with. It's not through your work, through any of your own effort. It is a version of categorizing people based on the natural sort of attributes they have. when you think about that, it's just so shallow. It's another form of discrimination, really. And it doesn't make logical sense either. Like, they made up this thing that the father told her is like, you're a girl, you're a daughter, you're not meant to have this power. If you have it, you're a disgrace and dishonor. Like, why? Why just because she's a girl, then if she has power, she's disgraced? Like, explain it. Like, in your magical China setting that does not exist anyway in the real world, if you made it up, like, give us a reason why. No, it just says it is. Which is like, fine. If you say so. At least that never existed in China. And also, they like to put the big ideas out, not through what visual medium are supposed to do, which is show. You know, show and tell, like the very classic thing people always talk about filmmaking is just show us through plot, through interactions, through what people speak and what they do. The big ideas is what you try to convey, but not just say it out loudly in words. Like, the only lines I can remember after I watch this film is brave, loyal, and true. Am I being brave? Am I being loyal? Am I being true? It's like chanting mantra. It's like I'm trying to get into a Zen mood of just Amitofo, Amitofo, Amitofo. The whole film is just loyal, brave, and true, loyal, brave, and true, loyal, brave, and true, loyal, brave, and true. Like, it just keeps saying that. Everybody's saying, like, everybody's just saying it. Nobody's doing anything for it. Like, you're not proving it to me through what you do. It's just like exercises of mouth and tongue. It's so bland. So that's also a big problem. Mainly those problems. And in terms of like the look of the film, just if you watch enough Chinese dramas, you know, like, it looks ridiculous, right? On Twitter, that's very widely spread in China, which is this film, or maybe some of this comment I forgot. This film looks even exotic to Chinese people, because we clearly have never known China like that. There's so many things we can just talk about that is ridiculous in this film. Like the color palette in the beginning, I'm like, wow, it's overkill. Not to talk about in ancient times, if people actually have the ability to dye things that colorfully. Because do you know like how hard it is to dye very colorful things? Certain colors do not even exist for certain cultures for hundreds of years, thousands of years, literally because they don't have the material. Like certain blue, certain purple, certain red are like impossible to get in ancient times without like modern chemistry. And everybody dresses like oversaturated neon lights. I'm like, it's so ugly. The colors don't go together. They look so ugly. And like the young Mulan, when she's chasing the chicken on the roof, like, what is she wearing? What the heck is that? It's close to yoga pants. Like, what is that? And then all the later things just look ridiculous too. Her makeup is terrible. Like the matchmaker scene. I know they're kind of trying to base it on a particular type of makeup that existed in China's history, which is true. Like, if you look at paintings and look at historical records, different times people do it differently. And ancient people tend to do very exaggerated makeup. That's true. It's very different from our aesthetic today. Very painted face, very crazy eyebrows and stuff. But if you look at carefully about like how they do it, there's a lot of very detailed, very fine design of it, like how the blush goes from this to the, like there's a gradient and how fine it goes. There's aesthetic behind it. It has to look pretty under its sort of aesthetic framework. It cannot just be randomly putting blotches of colors on your face. But if you look at how they did those makeup, the color, it's so bad. It's like Disney can afford really good makeup and makeup artists. You can even airbrush certain things on face if you want. It's not that hard. It looks so cheap and bad. Oh my god! Like, if you look at some of the China's recreation costume and makeup of a particular period that is everywhere online, you can just search. There's actually groups of people in China who are dedicated to do that. It's still very painted white face and stuff, but it looks so elegant and pretty. Like, I don't know, like the people who are in charge of the looks of things just do not have basic idea about what looks pretty and what looks ugly. I would observe it as this thing. The Orientalism thing hasn't really gone away in the general sort of Western's impression of Asia, particularly China. And this thing is really warped to start with, the Orientalism look of things. And somehow the West is happy to perceive China in that way, in its color, in its lighting, in it, like at the final scene when they're in the imperial hall and all the ladies and whatever people are standing there. Like if you look at that color, the clothing, that everything, it is so grotesque. That's the word I can come up with. Because I don't know, like for any normal human's aesthetics, anyone would consider those things look pretty. You know, like we're all humans. We have like all weird fascinations about golden ratio and things. There are things that are pretty same, you know, like cross the board. It just looks so ugly ass, so bad. And I almost feel like they intentionally want to submit to that because it is something that existed and people are comfortable with this narrative of, you know, the Orientalism thing. And, you know, like the Western people wouldn't find it problematic. But to Chinese person, it's just like, it looks ugly. You know, like we don't care. It's just ugly. and it feels like you're intentionally trying to make it look bad to Chinese audiences. So nobody would buy into that. Everybody is just so not happy with the looks of things in this film. And it's so coarse that like the texture of the clothing, how the tailorship works is just like bad. Like, do you remember Wen Mingna, like the previous Mulan who voiced Mulan, when she showed up at the end of the scene just as a guest kind of like cameo role? Like there's a shot of her like trails of her dress, and then it goes up like she's walking on that carpet, the green dress. There's this, I don't know what kind of embroidered bird on that cloth. Like if you look closely, like what the heck is that chicken? It looks so ugly. Oh my god. And if you want to go into detail about like what part of the armor and like it's a hot mess. A hot mess. Nothing is real. Like they mix a little bit of this dynasty style with that dynasty style and then added a little bit of their own imagination and a crazy color palette that just would never exist in history at that time. Like the soldiers on the wall in the city in that blue. Oh my god, like that blue is too blue. No way they can dye a soldier's clothes with that bright blue. Like they would go bankrupt. Do you know like how expensive blue dye is? Ancient history. You know, like I can rant about that forever. It's just so, you know, just add everything we think look good and together and whatever. This is what they decide to do with Mulan. So in terms of looks and things, just don't take it seriously at all. None of that. Oh, and what's the point of the phoenix? It's like a paper kite that's been flying in the sky and only she can see. And it never interacts with her, really. It doesn't really give her any... Apart from being a road sign for a couple of times, it has no magic. Like, it doesn't interact. It's so random. Like, it doesn't need to be there. And like... They're depicting the war between Mulan's country and against the northern tribal people, as if it is two villages fighting against each other. It's too small scale. But besides, also just one extra information for you is because Mulan is from northern dynasties Beiwei, in the poem, in the ballad that I recited, it says 可汗大点兵, which means the king drafted people. 可汗is Khan, is Khan. So basically for Mulan's country, their emperor is not the Middle Kingdom emperor. Their emperor is called Khan. And the Rouran, the northern tribal people, right, in this film is Khan. So you know, you see how weird? Is actually Mulan's emperor would be a Khan, and the northern tribal would be a different power. Like all those things gets mixed up anyway. But that's a small thing. What I'm talking about is like in the beginning when they charge at the city, There's like how many people, go and count it? It's like 13 or 14 people on horse. And they can take down a city gate. And they're like anti-gravity. And I'm like, huh? And also like when Mulan is like about to do the avalanche thing, the two armies are on the open field. If you look at how many people are versing each other, there are probably CGI stuff on it. And then one of the person, I think the general is saying, charge, like the left flank, charge. Okay, and then the shot shows 7 horses go out, and all the left flank is staying there. They're not moving because Mulan is going with the other 7 people, whatever, and they're gonna run into the witch. So for the convenience of the plot, 7 people chase down 12 people, and the entire army just sits there. I know it's animation adaptation, but can you just be a little bit respectful to reality? At that point, I'm like, whatever, you know, like, not to mention like when they run to a location and they pick probably really good looking locations, it's no longer in the same place. Like it suddenly gets to this magical yellow landscape with mist coming out. Whatever. Okay. I'll have fun with it. Although I think in China, the only thing people are really, really digging is the CP between Mulan and Gong Li's character, the witch. Because, you know, people get a GL vibe out of it. It's like, yeah, that looks cool. Like a lot of like GL fans are totally just doing fan edits out of that. So that's the only good thing I can see. People are really enjoying. Oh, and also like they totally recon every other character. Because of the Me Too thing, they think it's not a good idea to have the boss of Mulan fall in love with her. So they divide the character into 2, which is Zhen Zidan's character and the so-called male lead character who barely shows up on screen. And then the other soldiers that in the animation are each very interesting, like the monk, the fatter guy, the skinnier guy. They all have like a lot of funny moments in the animation. Like, after watching the film, can you remember who is who? Like, they don't even have screen time, don't even have a name. It's like, ugh. In terms of Liu Yifei's acting, I would say she's okay in this film because, like, you can give this role, like, the exact same script to any other capable actress, more capable. I doubt they'd do much better because they're so limited. The script is so limited, the character is so two-dimensional and uninteresting. Like who can do that magic, you know? Like even if you're like Morgan Freeman who can read a manual like a poem, it would just sound better. That's all. It's still not gonna make the character better. Gong Li is a fascinating actress, but like even her is like with that role, like how much can you do? And her role is also like not logical. Like nobody is actually, when you think about the logic behind all the characters, it does not make sense. In terms of, for example, Gong Li, the witch, is added in for girl power purpose. But if you want to run a parallel line, right, of a arch enemy, bad person, and a good person, and they are actually the same kind of people, but on different sides, like the different sides of the coin, is very also classic way of writing, you know, like your hero and anti-hero. You have to show us how they're paralleled and let us get the idea. Like let the audience, oh, we see what you're doing. Not telling us, again, they're on the ridge of the mountain. And she literally walks up to Mulan and says, we are the same. Spoiler alert! Scriptwriter, what are you thinking? It's just like such bad writing. It's just not acceptable. It's so bad. It's in your face, right? And also like the reason why she is doing the work for the bad guy does not make sense. Like he treats her horribly. He treats her like his slave, and she is far more powerful. She can turn into stuff. She has magic. That guy just has brute strength. I mean, he can fly, right? So in that power like structure, how does that work? If this guy is so annoying and not accepting your value, get rid of him. Just kill him and take his place, because none of his soldiers have superpowers, and if they rebel, you can just be the badass and say, if you do that, I'll kill you. Why don't you just take over the power? Like, is there some kind of weird magical structure in the story that they didn't explain that a woman just cannot do it? Like, in the physics of Mulan's world, that does not work? I don't understand why she is like, I have to work with this guy who does not like me, who does not treat me with respect, and who is less powerful than me. What is stopping you? So like, when you think about the logics, nothing works. It's just like a mess. It's not even like not being able to stand scrutinizing. It's just doesn't even follow basic logic of how things work. Somebody say, they probably got a scriptwriter off Fiverr. Why Gong Li kill herself? Yeah, I don't know. Because they want to pull the because GL line is popular recently. After Frozen? I don't know. Because the male lead is so like not having 存在感, which is like the feel of existence in this film. Like, he literally does not exist. Like, can you remember like how many scenes he's in and what's the purpose of his existence? There's hardly anybody else you can use for Mulan to have like a meaningful human emotional connection. So they picked the witch. And it's sad. It's so sad. Like, none of the music even made the way into the film itself. And they wrote this song, like this new song for this film, for what purpose? Jurassic World and Avatar. Oh, holy moly. Okay. Well, we see why. Well, if you want to look at Mulan's film, probably Zhao Wei and Chen Kun's. It's the only one, really, that is there in China. That's a film. And then we have a television series that's much older. It's led by Yuan Yongyi and Zhao Wenzuo, Sun Xing. But it's really, really old, so I don't think you can find like subtitles. And it's like 4:3 ratio back in the days. It's a really good drama though. Yuan Yongyi is so good. I love her as Mulan. In terms of live action, I think she's my favorite. She's really pretty, but she sells it too. And I love like how, especially after she got married, the type of story that happened in that drama. Also like the palace, it's just so empty. And there's no guards in it. I'm like, no, there's no way that it happens like that. Do you understand like what imperial means? They can just get in there so easily. I'm going, fine, whatever. Oh, also Li Lianjie's clothes, like the costume, there's one of the earlier costume that he's wearing a white, like a black hat. And like 10 layers of colors. Whoever designed that should eat their pen and eat their drawing board. It's that bad, okay? He looks like a bamboo shoot. And like, what the heck is that? It's so ugly ass. When I look at that, I'm like, oh, it screams horrible Orientalism. The next moment, I feel like a zombie is gonna wearing Qin Dynasty official's costume and jump out and start to hop. It is that bad. Yeah, I know. Game of Thrones producer. They're gonna do the Netflix version of Three Body Problems. Good luck. You're gonna F it up epically. Because China is doing its own version too. So we'll see. There's no way that Netflix can make that work. I can guarantee you. It's not because of technology or like the idea behind Three Bodies Problem is something I don't think those Western mainstream media people will get or agree with, or they will be too not daring to take it on. Because in a way, the really ugly side of humanity that you see in the Three Bodies Problem is happening right now in this world because of 2020. It's very parallel, it's very ironic, but it's ongoing. I don't think the Western mainstream media people would be, first of all, even acknowledge what is in that book and what is happening in the world now. They will not be daring enough to take it on. They probably will willingly ignore the message behind it and twist it in their own way. Like, I just don't trust. Like, you can F up a ballad of Mulan that is so simple, so badly. You want to take on Three Body Problem? Good luck. Good luck. You cannot even write a good ending for medieval setting, power struggle story. You totally butchered the last season of Game of Thrones. Good luck. trying to take on the universe. I'm just not gonna trust in that at all. So I think I've ranted most about Mulan, so I'm gonna stop talking about Mulan here. It's already an hour. Can you see that? Which is why I'm not making another video. If people are curious about what I think about Mulan, they can just come back to this and I'll time code it later. That's all on Mulan. I'm happy I didn't spend like 50 Canadian dollars for it. End of story.